As Hubert Davis and North Carolina look to fill the void left behind by Gigi Jackson's decommitment in the class of 2023, they've only offered two players, both of whom are also power forwards. One of them is TJ Power. We've already talked about him. So today we're unpacking Mr. Zayden High.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, it's Thursday, September 1st, 2022. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade, and I want to thank you for making Locked On Tar Heels your first listen or your first watch every single day. Please don't forget that the show is free and available anywhere you get podcasts, so you can subscribe right now. It doesn't cost you a thing, and that'll help make sure that you get your team every day. For those of you watching, it would mean a lot if you would also smash the like button and leave some comments on Zayden High as we're chatting. Let's get right into it. A quick note about today's interview with Jason Jordan. We had this conversation before the news broke that Zayden High would be taking an official visit to North Carolina on September 30th. This is great news for the Tar Heels and something we'll definitely talk about more as the date comes closer, but I just wanted to make you aware before you listen. It's great to be joined today on Locked On Tar Heels by Sports Illustrated's Director of Basketball Recruiting, Jason Jordan, a great staple of every week here on the show because we're always needing to look at who's next in the pipeline for the Tar Heels, and Jason always brings great content. So grateful to have him on the show. Part of the reason we're able to is because of LinkedIn. We'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college recruiting sponsor across the Locked On College Network. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. Jason, it's great to hang out again, talk some of these class of 2023 recruits. I feel like it's been a recurring theme, but basically we just have to keep talking about how does Carolina fill the void left by the decommitment of Gigi Jackson? And recently, a couple weeks ago, we talked about TJ Power and how he might do so. Today, we then turn our attention to a similar player in Mr. Zayden High. And it's interesting. A lot of the Carolina fan base has been on me like, hey, you guys talked about TJ. I want to hear about Zayden. And so let's get into talking about him.
Yeah, I really like him. He played with JL3 in the EYBL this summer. And he, obviously he was one of those guys that had the blow up summer. And what he really, he's like 6'10". He's not small. I think he's probably around 220-ish.
Yeah, that's what I've seen. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not small. But he's more perimeter based. Like he more so floats, and he's better in like a pick and pop. So he's knocking that 3-point shot down 100%. Like, I mean, he honestly gives you Brady Manek vibes, right?
Interesting.
A little bit, right?
Yeah.
And he's feisty down there in the paint. He can get down there and mix it up, but he's better in like a pick and pop setting or, a flash, and, you can run the offense through him in the high post. He makes good decisions on passing out of double teams and different things like that. But just crafty around the rim. He's active on the offensive glass. Who does that sound like? Maybe a Carolina big. And I've been told, I heard this in the summer, that he was a big time Carolina fan, that even before you guys had interest in him. So maybe you guys caught wind of that, and you may or may not be using that to your advantage. So
hey,
but that list is long. Like I know a lot of kids that say they're Carolina fans, and have said so in articles. So
yeah. There's lots of people that would have come to Carolina if they didn't go straight to the NBA, or that, you've heard all of those.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah.
So that's really interesting to hear. Just you describe his game, and you think about in the ACC, you're going to play Syracuse once or twice, and that ability to pass out of the high post or big to big passing, that's a good sign. Carolina traditionally has, you were just alluding to Armando Bacot. You traditionally, like last year, had that Brady Manek type with a more traditional big in Armando Bacot. And the complement of those two types of players would be great. The Tar Heels don't necessarily have that outside of Armando Bacot right now, so they need to find someone like that to add to the roster. But that is a really encouraging thing to here. Now, you just talked about Carolina offering, and it's interesting. I'm on 247's profile of him and all his interests and offers. Arkansas is the highest listed, but on his offer list, it doesn't even show North Carolina here. So are you hearing anything about, obviously you said he's been a Carolina fan. Is there some interest then on his part?
Well, yeah, I mean, sure, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, he's definitely interested, definitely interested in the school. He's been a fan of him. So, yeah, I definitely think there's potentially some interest growing on both sides. But, I definitely think that if the interest continues to grow, I know he would be interested. You know what I'm saying?
Yep, exactly.
So, I don't think he has the offer yet.
On Carolina's, and maybe that's part of it. I need to go back and look more into that, because on Carolina, there's a really good site I follow for Carolina's like scholarship count, and it's got all their offers, and it lists both he and TJ Power as having offers. But since the 247 site doesn't show it, it might not be.
No, they update things late, so we'll go with that. Like I know the interest has definitely grown there. So if they don't have it, it's definitely coming. He probably has been offered, as he should be, because he would fit in the offense very well there. It's so funny. I did a story on this. I actually talked to Jackie Manuel about this very thing, where not specific recruits NCAA, but where you're recruiting a kid that is a guy who says you're the dream school, right? And how do you handle that? And obviously it's a notch under your belt, right? Obviously that's something that will benefit you for sure. But he said that their process with that is to just turn it up even more. Like, you don't rest on your laurels because the kid leads Carolina blue. And I'm not saying he does it. I know he said he rooted for them. I remember hearing that a lot in the summer. But that's obviously an advantage, right? So but they say they turn the heat up even more because they want to that kind of situation. Coaches want to close quick. So I would expect for them to move fast there for sure.
Okay, and just to confirm, July 12th, he received an offer. It's on his Twitter. It's up and it's been written about. So absolutely, he has an official offer from the Tar Heels. So let's then turn to looking at, because right now Carolina just has offered he and TJ Power, these two power forwards that we've now talked about. And so I'd like to just do a little compare and contrast with these two young men. Obviously, as you talked about, Zayden High, it seems like, is about 10, 15 pounds heavier, maybe has an inch or so on TJ. But outside of that, how do their games compare to each other?
Yeah, I think TJ's probably going to check off a couple more boxes as far as creating off the dribble, like from the perimeter. Like TJ's going to be able to create his own shot against most guards, whereas Zayden is probably gonna, he's probably gonna face more bigs, and you'll be able to play like a 4-out with him, whereas TJ's attacking guards and wings, and he's better at creating it for sure. He's better at creating his own shot. He has a better ball handle. Both of them can stroke it now. Both of them can stroke it. I would say it's comparable. Maybe TJ has a slight edge there too.
Okay.
But both dynamic players, both play with an amazing motor. I can't say they're like they could play together. They're not the same.
That's my next question. Yep.
Yeah, they're not the same player. No, they're not the same player. TJ just has more in the bag. He's more versatile. He's more the biggest thing is he's created his own shot, and TJ can run the point. He's at his best when he has the ball in his hands. You got to remember, over the summer he averaged 6.5 assists a game. That is insane. That's insane.
Yes.
So people, because he's such a great scorer, people forget that he's an amazing playmaker, and so that's where I think he's at his best when he's playing, not just for himself. I mean, yeah, he's great when he's scoring, but a lot of guys are. But what separates him from Zayden and anybody else in that lane is, his ability to create and make good decisions with the ball.
Interesting. So it's almost like, if I can explain this properly, it's like they're both 4s, but Zayden trends more towards 5 out of the other way, and TJ would trend more back towards a 3.
Yeah, I would say TJ's more of a 3, and I think he'll play more like on the wing in college.
Okay.
Like he's not going to
So
be down there pushing people up. No, I don't
gotcha.
see
So
that.
he's got the height of a 4, but is more
Right.
of a pure 3. Or
Yeah,
not pure 3,
yeah.
but it lives there a little bit more. Man,
Yeah, I mean, he
that's
told
cool.
me, I mean, I'm not saying, don't be mad, but he did tell me that he kind of patterns his game after Jason Tatum. Not, we're going to forget where he goes to school.
Hey,
You know, we're
that's
talking
okay.
about the Boston Celtics, Jason Tatum.
Yep. Yeah,
That's
okay.
Hey,
Hey, Caleb Love came to Carolina. It's all good.
there you go.
So
There you go. There you go.
So here's I was going to ask about their games complementing one another, and that's a big win. So as we look at next year's roster, and we'll get to that more in depth in a minute, Carolina definitely has space for both of them. And so would you like Hubert Davis wants them both? This isn't one of the, hey, we got spots for one of you. Hubert Davis would gladly take both these young men if they wanted.
Man. Oh, you can imagine them in the pick and pop. Jeez, that'd be tough. That'd be tough.
Especially with TJ's height doing that, man.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. I mean, definitely. I mean, for sure. 100%. And they would mesh very well with Simeon. I mean, that would be an amazing class. That would be an amazing class for sure. Okay. They all complement each other really well. And they all, more so than anything, they all have a great mentality. None of these guys are prima donnas. Least of all Simeon, you know, and again, the other ones either, but Simeon is just a different type of breed. Like he's, you know, he's man, y'all like Hubert knocked it out the park with that one. He's a star.
Even though the most recent recruiting rankings moved TJ Power ahead of him, because
that's because well, I'll tell you, the SI 99 comes out.
Bring it from yours.
In early December, late November, and all will be corrected in the SI. You know everything, and they know nothing, right? No, I'm joking.
Everybody wait on it. Jason's going to have some new and improved rankings for all of us to look at. Love the SI 99. Love that. So here's my last question on this one, and then we'll go ahead. Let me just put it to you. If you could, now I know, again, they're not the same player. They're different. But if you could only have one of TJ Power or Zayden High, who do you want on your roster?
Coach. I'm going to take TJ Power. Just because TJ's a bad man. He's a bad man.
That's good.
TJ's a bad man. I've seen him do some crazy stuff. And like he said, when we talked a couple weeks ago, when we did the story, he said, and this stuck with me, he said, man, I'm gonna tell you something. He said, you know, I've read about this, I've heard about this, but the mental shift when you get to another level where you understand the game different, he said he had that moment in July. And then he said, I've never come back down from that mental shift. And that thing stuck with me. So if I'm a coach, if I hear that, I'm like, man, I'm not recruiting nobody else. You're the one. You're the one. Yeah.
Love it. All right. Coach Jason Jordan, give him some TJ Power. We love that. We're going to talk about how Zayden High might fit in with the 2023-24 Tar Heels in just a second, right after I tell you about Bet Online. Bet Online is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. There's also reviews and news of every league, including Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, NHL, combat sports, esports, and even golf. Bet Online continues to be the top online resource for all your sports wagering info. From live in-game betting to scores and podcasts, they've got you covered. Head to Bet Online today or use your mobile device to learn more about all the trends in action. Bet Online, where the game starts. So let's keep talking about Zayden High, Jason, and how he might, if he comes to Carolina, big ifs here, there's nothing set in stone ever. Lots of people coming after a talented young man like this, but how he might fit in with the 23 Tar Heels. As you look at Carolina's class, as we've already talked about, Simeon Wilcher is currently the only commit in the class of 23. Beyond that, Zayden High and TJ Power are the only offers on the table right now. Now, Coach Davis has a slew of 24 offers out there. I believe there are 8 by my count in the class of 2024. And so Carolina, let's just think about this. You get 13 scholarships a year for those who are unaware. You definitely lose Pete Nance. You definitely lose Leaky Black. They're out of eligibility. And then let's just say beyond that, Bacot and Caleb Love both leave. That means you're down 4 to 9 scholarships plus Simeon Wilcher. So you're at 10. You've got at least 3 spots here, probably. And as we've already said, you would definitely take both of these guys.
Yeah.
But looking at the front court, where Zayden High would be, I mean, if Bacot's gone, Nance is gone, you've really got Jalen Washington. You got Will Shaver, who's a freshman now. He's not going to be an impact player.
Right.
How do you see Zayden High slotting right into this team if he commits to Carolina?
Yeah, well, he's a guy that you could play 4 out with, and so they could. I'm sure they're going to go get a transfer, and it'll probably be a big, a big guy who is more confined to that space, almost like a Armando Bacot or something like that. Guy who's not pulling threes out there. You're not playing 4 out with Armando launching threes from the perimeter, but I think Zayden could. Like Zayden could step out there, like at that high post off pick and pop, coming down, setting the high screen and fade and the pick and fade, and he's going to thrive in that role for sure. And I think he could definitely step in and give you some positive production right away. He has that type of skill set, because I don't know if I said it earlier, but he's knocking that 3-point shot down.
Yes.
He's knocking that thing down. And that's where he's at his best. Like, that's where he's going to earn his money. And he's aware of that. But, I'm not saying he doesn't ever go in the paint. He does go in the paint. He's productive down there, and he's a really good rebounder. And see, that's the other thing. So he'll help in that regard too. I mean, Carolina bigs is almost like a prerequisite. You have to get 20 rebounds every practice, I think. So, I think he'll definitely be able to step in right there and, give that production on the defense. And he's actually really good on the offensive glass as well. He's very active. He has a great motor. So he's always moving around, always being very active. A little over hyper, which is a great thing. He's your guy. But I definitely think he could fill that role.
Man, you love that. And I was just looking at, you were comparing him a little bit to what Brady Manek did last year. And then thinking about the rebounding side, Manek averaged 6.1 rebounds a game last year, 1.5 on the offensive glass. From what you're saying about Zayden High's rebounding ability, it sounds like at the least he could match that, right?
Yeah. Well, I'll say that's his, from day one, I don't know, but that's definitely the projective ceiling, right? So I could definitely see him fitting a Brady role eventually, right? Like, I don't think he's going to come in there and be Brady from day one.
No,
you got to give him a curve.
Brady wasn't Brady from day one.
Brady wasn't exactly. Brady wasn't Brady from day one. And so I definitely think that, that's where he projects. I think he could be that guy for sure. And I mean, you want that guy, right? I mean, Brady, he did pretty well. I think you got him.
It was okay.
He's pretty good. Yeah. Brady's a bad man too.
Yeah. I would say he was
a guy. I gotta say this. Every time I'm talking about Brady Manek, I have to say, toughest guy I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen somebody take that elbow that he took in the championship. Oh my! From Big Dave, I know Big Dave.
Dude, McCormick is a monster. Yes.
So Big D Mac he weighs a lot more than what that weight than what it says on the web. I'm gonna just say it like that.
Yes.
He didn't do it on purpose, but he did. Dead weight came. Oh man, I said, yo, I told another one of the writers, they got to get him out of there. He's punch drunk. Like, he's literally standing. He's done. Like, he's done. And he was for like 3 minutes, and then he kind of started coming back, and then he started balling. I said, oh my goodness. Yeah, Brady's always gonna have my respect for that. Bad man right there. That's a bad man.
In fact, I was going to say, I've said all summer, I think Carolina was a Brady Manek concussion away from a national championship. Like, it's just like,
there's no doubt about it.
Because he was stroking that game like he had been the entire tournament. And if he doesn't have that,
they didn't have
telling what happened.
No answer for that. They didn't have nothing for that.
Nope.
At all. I completely agree.
Yep. Oh man. Okay. We got to get past that, because that's last year. So as you alluded to, Jason, yes, absolutely. We're looking at least probably 3 open scholarships heading into next year, if not more, depending on transfers out and other things that happen. But you got to believe Hubert Davis is going to be very active in the transfer portal. He's shown that these first couple years of the transfer rule, getting 3 last year in Dawson Garcia and Brady Manek and Justin McCoy from Virginia, and then bringing in Pete Nance this year. And so absolutely, if Bacot does indeed not use that 5th year of eligibility, which who knows in this day and age what could happen?
Yeah.
Right? Like, man, Drew Timmy's back. Who knows? But
Yeah, that's
assuming
true.
he's gone, Hubert Davis is going to go get a transfer, and it's going to be a high-level big that lives in the post. And then you look at people like matching that with Jalen Washington, matching that with someone like Zayden High, and the loaded wing and that backcourt. Even if Caleb Love's gone, you're still going to have Seth Trimble, Simeon Wilcher, and probably RJ Davis back, depending on how this year goes. So hopefully a little bit of reload. We will have to wait and see what happens there. Anything else you would say about Zayden High and how he might fit into things?
I mean, I think, it's probably understated that he's also a really good playmaker, definitely up in the high post. He makes really good decisions, and I don't understate stuff like that. He makes really good decisions on the elbows for sure, and in the high post area. And that's something that I think has helped his game flourish, especially in the summer. But it's helped him be really effective too, and to keep the defense off balance. So that JL3 team really thrived because of his ability to create and his ability to make good decisions in that area.
Love that. Yeah. Jason, is there one last thing? Is there anything you've heard about a potential timeline for his decision? I mean, I know it's probably really early in the process for him, more visits taken, stuff like that.
Yeah, I think what I've been told is that he's definitely going to take some visits. But I don't. He's a guy who could potentially pop, by the early signing period, which is in November. I would think that is not off the table for him, is what I've heard on the back channels.
Okay. Hey, love the back channels. The back channels come to the front, and we get. That's great. So, man, it's so good to talk about Zayden High. And speaking of recruiting, so much has changed in the recruiting world over the last couple of years. I'm going to ask Jason to share with us a little bit about what he sees that's going well in the recruiting world and what are some of the worst things he's seeing. And we'll talk about that in just a second. So the recruiting landscape is just always ebbing and flowing, trying to figure out stuff. Who do we talk to? Who are the people? But at the NCAA level, there are some things that have really affected recruiting. Let me just tick off a couple, and then we'll let Jason begin to unpack it. We are about a year now into the one-time transfer portal rule coming into effect, where players can transfer without sitting out a year. This is the second class incoming of that. We're about a year now into NIL. That took shape, started last summer, in the summer of 21. So that's going and affecting things. We are moving a little bit away from COVID, although the NCAA is still handing out waivers like candy right now. And as people are probably aware, winter sport athletes were granted an extra year of COVID eligibility, and we've still got several years to cycle through that because it began with any player competing in the 2020-21 basketball season. So that would be this year's juniors. So we've got up about 3 more seasons that players could use that 5th year of eligibility. One interesting factor is that starting this season, those players now count against your scholarship quota as they didn't previously. So Leaky Black, Pete Nance, they count against Carolina's 13. All of that, Jason, affects what you do and how you talk to recruits and their families and what you're hearing from coaches and handlers and all that. All that said, what are some of the best things you are experiencing out of that in recruiting? And then what are some of the frustrating and difficult things?
I would say the best thing is, I got to say, NIL, because I've always felt like players should profit from their name and likeness. Yep. I think that's great. That would definitely be the best thing, because these players put in such hard work, and this is something that should have been a no-brainer for a while ago. And had we done it a while ago, we probably would have figured out a better way to do it than the way we're doing it now, because that brings
the NCAA kicking and screaming their way into it. Yeah.
Oh man! So now it's just, we go from, you even look at a pile of money, then you are out of here, pal, and you're blackout. You get out of here, right? Now we're like, just get those checks. We have it's a free market, right? And so now that has made it bad, right? So now we have different collectives, and it's really highest bidder, especially in the transfer portal. You see that a lot there, but nobody really follows any, because there are no. I talked to Mike Boynton about this at Oklahoma State.
Yeah,
and he made a great point when he said a rule is only a rule if it's enforced. If it's not, then it's just a suggestion. And if it's not going to be enforced, why wouldn't you take advantage of it, right? And they are, and everybody's taking advantage of it. And
especially interesting to hear that from him, going what Oklahoma State's been through. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I think there's going to have to be some regulation there. I've heard that there is some coming, but I don't know that that's going to come soon. Like that's, that's something that eventually, I mean, we're going to have to, because it's getting worse. I definitely hear horror stories all the time. Coaches vent all the time about this stuff. And there's a certain entitlement that comes with, so all these things are bad. That's the bad part. And, it's definitely something that I think we need to change. I like the rule about not having, so I like it and I don't like it, because the transfer portal rule about, being eligible immediately, I get it and I understand it. The problem is it's encouraging everybody to transfer. So if there is there's no negative to it, and the negative was like, I mean, do I really want to lose a year? Like, maybe I should. So now, I mean, I think we had over 1,500 last year, which was up like something a couple hundred from the prior year. We're going to have probably 1,800 to 2,000 this year. Just know it. Just know that. And I'm going to go back and check that number around May. And see if I'm right. But I promise you, it's, I mean, with nothing holding them back. I mean, they're out, and now, like I said, I don't know if I said it on this one, but another podcast, now, that has changed even the recruiting strategy for low to mid majors. And now they're saying, hey, just come here, produce, and then portal. So give us a year where we win the league and then get out of here, man. And they really say that in the dens of these 3-star, 2-star recruits, and they're unabashed about it. They're like, either you're going to change with the times or you're going to be unemployed. So they got to, that's the sell, and it's working. And they're getting kids that, maybe could help them win the league. And we'll see. I mean, this year is going to be very telling, but those are just a couple things I would say that are negatives. Yeah.
It almost turns the mid majors and low majors into like what a JUCO or a 2-year school is trying to do, of like, come here, get your grades right, and then get back to the D1 level. Like,
if you do it in a year, great. If it takes 2, okay, cool. We know that your goal is to get, because I'm a 3-star recruit. I really wish that Carolina would have recruited me. Oh, well, wait. I'll tell you what, you could come here and help us win our league, and we'll put calls in to Hubert. I know
I'll call Hubert. Yeah, exactly.
Right. You come here and average 16, I promise you, Hubert's gonna come get you. Like, this is what they're saying. And it's, I mean, come on, if I'm a 2-star and I wanted Hubert Davis to call me, and I'm like, the best way to, it's not gonna happen now. So the best way for me to do that, to live out my dream, and Baylor Shearman talked about this. I mean, he's like the prospect.
It's a great example
in the portal. He said, oh my God, like, Bill Self, I grew up a Kansas fan. Bill Self called me after he won the national title. Oh my goodness. Like, yo, I'm living he said for the first day or two, he was just like, ooh, like a giddy school kid. You know what I'm saying? And so everybody, now they're looking at like, I could be Baylor Shearman. I could do that, So we haven't seen the worst of it, unfortunately. I think that's ahead. Yeah, I definitely do.
Okay, so and so much of that is the NCAA just dragging their feet, really like holding stranglehold on amateurism, only giving up eventually when state laws were coming into effect and they were like drug into this.
Yeah.
But if they had been able to get out ahead of it or whatever, get some CBA collective bargaining agreement stuff going on, then we could have potentially gone into this in better footing. And now you have to retroactively do that. Do you think that's salvageable? Are we going to see something like a CBA or some other unionizing or whatever to help make some sense of all this?
Yeah, we'll have to. We'll have to, because it's that bad. And it's, I mean, when you, I don't want to say the school, but I think what I'm talking about. I mean, when you see a kid, go to a school, I'll leave names out, goes to a school, and the star of that team says, "Oh, you gave him what?"
I'm just sitting here doing this while you're talking.
Oh, I'm out. And I need you to give me that. Well, we can't give you that. You already got this. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm transferring. and I'm going to put it on Twitter, and it's going to be real because I put it on Twitter. And so, and then you see the next week, he's going to stick with the school. Yeah. I think they may have figured out the number to make that star happen. I mean, it's just, so now, Mike said, no, we're like GMs. We're like GMs now. It's like, and that doesn't lend itself to a, conducive environment for most of the coaches in college basketball who are like no nonsense. I'm not saying like you're Bobby Knight, right? Like that day is over. Like
sure. Yeah,
but
you can't.
You got to respect you. There has to be, you got to draw a line. You can't, and you have to have your line as a coach, what you're not going to put up with and what you're not going to do. And, I mean, a guy like Hubert Davis, who's, I mean, he's an older guy who's been at the highest level, had success at the highest level. I mean, Hubert ain't trying to hear, prima donna talk. I know that, so, and then what does that mean? Does that mean I'm not going to get the best players because I hold my standard? Well, I think that's great that a guy like Hubert Davis I know that Hubert Davis is going to hold the standard.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
And I think that's amazing, but I don't like, but if he's going to be penalized for that, I think that's super whack. And I think because of that, it's going to take some bad stories, it's going to take some bad situations, but I think they'll get there and they're going to have to put some things in place to aid in that regard for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, folks, we're still in the midst of this, in the thick of all of it. We're going to have to just keep tabs on how NIL continues to evolve and other things and how that affects recruiting and what programs look like and how you build a roster, all of that. We'll keep talking with Jason about it, and that'll be great. Brother, thank you for everything, as always.
Always, man. Take care.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Locked on Tar Heels. Big thanks to Jason Jordan for joining us as always. Coming up tomorrow, we got to unpack this road trip to Boone, North Carolina to take on the Appalachian State football team. It's been great. Thank you so much for joining us. If you'd like to follow the show on Twitter, you can do that at Locked on Heels or me at Isaac Shade, and you can follow Jason at Jason Jordan SI. Now for your second listen, go check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview, an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the 2022 NFL season. The local team experts of Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey NFL Insiders all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or anywhere else you get podcasts. It's been great to be together today. Thanks so much for joining me. I got to remind you that it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Until tomorrow, peace.